Give me a minute. I'm gonna put a protection shield around this compartment for us all. So it is. Okay, so I will always ensure that my compartment, my YouTube compartment, as well as any high vibrational energies that are directed to watch my channel are also protected. And I am always also playing frequency music to help in that protection. So today we're playing 528 hertz, and I will at some point speak more about that. Today, though, I would like to speak about sorry, let me start over. See if I can connect with my higher self instead of just speaking from my monkey mind. The last videos I just did were my timeline and my story, my truth, my testimonial. And like I had mentioned in those, the point of the video and the point of me getting so detailed about my life and about all the obstacles I've been through is to help those of you who have or are still currently going through obstacle after obstacle after obstacle, reminding you that your soul signed a contract that wanted you to go through exactly what it is you're going through right now. And I have been able to get through mine enough to see that. And so now I'm going to take my timeline and I'm going to break it down, and I am going to be able to explain how I was able to get through everything, and then also be able to talk about, how maybe at the time I didn't see the importance or the silver lining at the time, but how later I did. How I was able to not just see that, but be very grateful about the tower moment or the dark night of the soul that I went through, the having to release people, things, places, and and the fact of having to do this all by myself, which was again part of what my soul wanted me to experience in this journey. And so if you too are experiencing any of this, then this will resonate for you. And if not, simply click on by, because this will not resonate for everybody. Just want to be very clear about that, because this journey is very unique. You also have a lot of powers that your spirit, your soul is trying to show you. And you could be unaware. Maybe you are aware, but I know for the majority of my life, I was unaware. I hid it from myself as a survival tool. But while I was hiding things, I also heightened my superhero powers, unconsciously, subconsciously. And so that's what I'm going to try to dive into today is I'm going to start speaking about that section of my timeline where, after I had been scammed and conned and gang stalked and gaslit and potentially human trafficked by that scammer, con man, psychopath, and how he was not only helping me to understand that style of a person. In regards to general, he was trying to help me see what I grew up in, the types of people that I have been surrounded by my entire lifetime, but continued to keep myself blind, again, out of survival. Because And so, okay, so we're just going to start where after, so there was, so it would have happened right about, right when my deep healing started 6 to 7 years ago at this point, about 6.5, 7 years ago now, when I started into, this is when I started, when my sobriety started. This is when I really said, I'm going to start healing and not let anything in life get in the way. Because previous to this, keep in mind, those first 20 years of my initial awakening, I kept allowing life things to get in the way, and then my guilt and my shame and anything else and fears fed into that. And it was finally me saying, I don't care. I need to take a stand. I need to just do this. It doesn't matter. And I didn't really understand what I was doing, but this is right when my higher self took over and just kind of slid me into flow state, and things just started happening for me. And it was magical. That's all I can say, especially when I look back at that time. It was, because like I say, I remember saying to myself, or thinking to myself even, wow, I cannot believe how I just made it through that, and how I've been just dancing, blissfully dancing through all these hard moments right after having this extreme fear, like all these just low vibrational feelings from this fear space that I had been left in. And so what I'm going to talk about is all the positive things that came out of this. So the first thing that I said was, well, and okay, let me back up. So because of the gang stalking and the constant surveillance that was being done on me, I obviously went into a place of, being super outgoing to basically out of default. I went into hermit mode because being in public was so triggering, because that con man took out anybody I knew from my life to support me and began inserting fake, false friends, false lovers, false people to try to come in and pretend that they were going to, be part of my life in a positive way, in a benevolent way. And it just was not true. And it took, as a trusting person, the universe was like, we're going to really get you to learn that you can't be so trusting, that you have to have some discernment and boundaries. And we're going to teach you, since you were never taught as a child, because of the fact that you weren't allowed to have boundaries. I got in trouble for having boundaries. So quickly going back to that initial time when I was young, one of the superhero powers that I was able to heighten, due again because of default, was, and due to my my own ability to try to protect and survive in this very toxic, abusive, addictive environment, was the fact that I had to be, if you remember, and if you've listened to my timeline, you would remember me saying that every day I feared my dad until I was 40, right? And every day he would come home from work, I was so scared, like that at the time period he'd come home, because I didn't know if he was gonna flip out on me right away, if I'd have 5 minutes, an hour. It was bound to happen at some point, and I was always the target. I was his punching doll, if for lack of better words, but sometimes it was that, it was physical at times. So, but a lot of verbal and mental abuse. And so I learned, I heightened one of my superhero powers of being able to feel energies and feel other people's energies. At the same time, I was blocking off my own. And that's what I've been now in these nowadays, trying to learn how to reactivate again, is what do my energies feel like? Because I got in trouble for feeling my own energies. So I shut that system off for me. But what I did turn on highly in replacement of that was the fact that I could feel other people's energies, which is so funny because like I've thought about this, that I can help, like I can predict and help others heal and know what they're going to deal with. And it's to the T. And so my intuitive abilities for others is amazing. And this is where, and it was funny because I naturally do this, but I think back on it, and after researching enough about this is what somebody who's been through complex PTSD, which that's my diagnosis. Or that was my diagnosis when I was going through EMDR therapy with all my therapists for the 6 years very intensively. That's one of the things that we talked about was, I had to learn how to feel the energies before they'd come in, because it was a way for me to try to kind of protect myself, to know, like, is it going to be super angry coming in? How do I need to respond? And so forth. This was prepping me and building my superhero power of being intuitive for others. So I'm a natural intuitive healer for others. And this is a natural ability for me that I had, but that was being worked on. So, I have so much gratitude for what I chose in my soul contract coming into this lifetime to take on, because that my soul knew that that's what I needed to learn that lesson in that way in order to be able to hone in that superhero power. Okay. So now we're going to come back to where I just finally, I was able to get this con man and the gang stalkers and the potential human traffickers away from me. The first thing you have to do in order to make that happen when you're being hard gang stalked is you need to try to find a place that you can feel safe. And this is hard. I ran, like I say, I was in running from them for 2.5 years, moved a total of 12 times in 3 years. I was moving on average every 4 months to try to get away from whatever it was that they were trying to do and pull me into. So my mind, started conjuring up how I could try to find a safe place. Because what happened is if they'd find once they'd find where I was after a move, they would infiltrate my home space. They would, once I started learning that I couldn't trust people anymore and stopped inviting people into my home, because it was those people I'd invite in that would implant videos, listening devices, tracking devices, and all my electronics and anything, transportation wise and so forth. And so once I was able to say, okay, no more people, then if they'd still find me, they would just find other ways to mess with me, which would include them sneaking into my spaces when I'd be away at work or on an errand. Because at that point now, I'm not, I have nobody. And so, because they systematically push anybody that could possibly support you out of your life as a tactic. It's it's an isolation tactic. It's a mind manipulation tactic. It's to control and, to really, try to take over your mind and put you in fear state. And then that keeps you at a low vibration, which makes you able to be controlled, right? Okay. So once I got to that point, and was realizing they were still sneaking in, stealing stuff, messing with my cats, still trying to implant types of listening and viewing devices. Then I knew, and knowing I didn't have any safe places to go, the goal became, my mind was like, okay, we're going to figure out a way to try to manifest a safe house. There was a moment, because if you remember, at that time period, I was on probation, and the probation person that my probation officer, she knew about my situation. She even discussed with me going into witness protection to try to, and was trying to educate me on narcissists and psychopaths and the antisocial spectrum, along with all the research I had been doing at the time as well, because I kept trying to go, how do I make myself as an empath, highly sensitive person, less of a target? And that's where I really took on the task of trying to understand why I would be a target and what creates that type of person to want to come after a type of person like myself. We'll get more into that. But so what had happened next then I figured, so the universe kind of guided me. I was in a state that had the mountains, right? And I was down the mountain at that time period in a more city space. So there was, I was very easily accessible once they'd find me. And it was right as I started working at an auto parts store. Again, I did that to try to learn how to work on vehicles. And I had just gotten promoted to an assistant manager position at this particular place. And then right as that process was happening, the universe sent in this random customer to me who offered me this, because at the time I kept thinking I would really like to start working with animals. I can communicate with animals. I was starting to feel like I need to start working more with animals than humans. Humans were triggering me. They were giving me panic attacks. I could barely make it through a shift without getting triggered because, like I say, they would send people in once they'd find where I was, even to my job, to mess with me. So the universe sends in this beautiful person that says, hey, you know what? There's a job position at this kennel, this boarding for cats and dogs up the mountain here in this particular city that I would have loved to have lived in. And that's how I started my path up that direction and into this beautiful healing space that me with my higher self, and I really wasn't in that connection yet with my higher self. So my higher self literally took the wheel from me and was like, okay, we're going to start directing you, and brings me up into this small little company to work for that allowed me to start working with animals. And granted, like I say, I had to take a hard pay cut, and it meant I had to live really simply. But again, I was trying to do that anyways. I was trying to downsize. Obviously, with the hackers and the con men, they had already stolen a lot of stuff from me at this point. But like I say, I kind of just said, well, it's about downsizing too. So anyways, I move up the mountain to take this animal, start working with animals, and I'm, really starting to think of it more as I'm going to incorporate my own animal therapy into my healing. And understanding that this is unconditional love that I had never received. And I just want to love them. And that's all animals want as well, So I wanted to be able to give what I hadn't been able to give to I had given it to a couple of humans, There, like I say, I had about 3 or 4 relationships that, if I hadn't been in my own karmic space, would have been great. But they, I wasn't ready at that time. And so anyways, I start working for this company, and then that's what gets me up into this particular city where I start working just solely for this with the animals. But like I say, I was working so much, and just to be able to barely pay my bills, which was fine because I'd go to work and then I'd come and be home with my cats. And so it was just me and animals all day. And this was trying to help me re-regulate my nervous system that had been in overdrive for 3 years because of this intense fear survival state that I was in. But then you got to keep in mind the first 40 years of my life was like that as well. due to my home life from my emotionally immature, toxic, dysfunctional family life that I was growing up in as well. However, okay, so now I'm at this place, and now I choose to try to get another job, another part-time job with a different parts store. And they paid more, and I was able to try to do them both in tandem for a minute. But this is where I meet this beautiful soul, him and his wife, who had the first, where what I called my healing my healing oasis. This was the $1 million house on top of a mountain in this beautiful, like 360-degree view of the mountains. I got to see beautiful sunsets and sunrises that were just like, whew. So beautiful. Beautiful doesn't even describe how it was, but it was like a dream every day. And it's funny because, like I say, so once I was able to find that place because of meeting this beautiful soul, who not only him and his wife and his family showed me what a real family looks like when they love each other, and care for each other and support each other, was able to finally see that for the first time. They also allowed for me to have a safe space. And so the goal of this conversation is to really let everybody know that if you are in a space that you are being gang stalked and, just under siege, under attack or whatever, if you feel like you could potentially be, trying to be human trafficked and all that. The most important part, and I know you understand this probably, it's just a matter of how it's supposed to happen, is you just have to start, telling yourself that that's what I need to find. Because like I say, this fell on my lap, and I was living in a place paying like easily a quarter of what I should have probably been paying. But these people were so beautiful. They knew my story. They knew I was trying to rebuild because of what I had just been through. And, these people because these people were, I had told you, they set me up on one charge of a felony fraud that unfortunately I wasn't able to dismiss. There were 4 other charges that they tried to put on me for things like trying to they used my information to try to pull out unemployment claims or whatever in another state. They tried using my information and going to like casinos. One of them was that they gave this particular woman my information, and she went up to, I guess, a slot machine after somebody was there and tried to cash out like the ending of this person's money or something. And luckily, like I say, because I was with my probation officer at the time, because she was the one who said, what's this? And I said, I don't know. I have an alibi for this time period. And then what had happened is luckily they had video, and the particular woman was Latina. And as you can see, like, our faces didn't match up, but she had my information and she had my, all of it, like my address and everything like that. And so had that video not been there, I would have gotten another charge put on my record because of this. So like I say, out of the 5 charges, 1 I only got charged. There was 4 I was able to get dismissed. And this is because this is what they do, is they'll take people's information and they impersonate you. And they now have something to cover up what they're doing criminally. And then they try to put this on people that, are innocent. So, okay. So anyways, once I was able to get into this space, this beautiful healing space, now this is where the real magic starts, people. This part is my bread and butter. This is like what I just recently thought back on, because as of right now, I am currently facing another scenario where I am trying to escape from the evil grips of my family, my karmic family, who is trying to do to me what these people, these scammers and con artists were trying to do to me back then. And again, I talk about it in the fact of not being victim to this anymore. The fact that I had to have that happen with that original con artist who met me, tried to date me, in preparation to be able to have my mind be able to handle what I would be experiencing now or at that time later. And I think about it, had I not experienced what I experienced back then to be able to handle what I'm dealing with in the today time now, yeah, I wouldn't have been able to handle it as gracefully as I have been. And so I am so grateful. Now, again, I'm so grateful for that con artist. I am so grateful for that opportunity to have been freaked out beyond my beliefs, in a fear state that I had never experienced in my conscious mind, at least at that point. And because it prepared me for right now. But going back to this point, and that's why I say so, it's like I looked back and I went, because right now I'm having to recreate that beautiful healing space that my higher self just guided me into and beautifully set me into. I'm going to try to keep this at a half an hour. And so this was kind of like the prep into that conversation. And I know if you're going to be listening to my videos, just bear with me. I am trying to learn how to articulate my story better and in the best way that I can with as few amount of words as possible. But yeah, I'm also struggling with having some anxiety about this and being a little nervous about this. So I am at 26:33 right now, and I'd like to cut this off at this moment. When I do make my next video, I will be speaking about the awesome things that my higher self and me co-created to start this real, what I'm calling the unreal first awakening, that really just started to open up my eyes to what I am, to where I'm at even right now. So if you have listened to this point, thank you so much for listening. I look forward to leaving this next message full of goodies about how to, maybe you'll be able to get some tips on or plant some seeds about what it is that you can do for yourself to try to help you get yourself one step closer into your awakening process. So thank you. I'm sending my love and my gratitude. And if this does resonate with you, definitely leave a comment, as I would love to hear people's feedback about any of this. And like I say, these will get a little bit easier to watch, and I'll try to get better at being a little bit more concise and not veer off in my story either. So thank you so much.